Hey y'all, Board Game Rancer, where you'll find everything solo tabletop gaming and more. And it's that time of the year again, where I bust out the top 10 solo games that I played for the year 2020. Let's have a look. One suggestion, you might check on that there video up there. That's going to go over exactly what I played in 2020, because my top 10 can only consist of what I played. And so if you want a good reference on what I'm basing my decision on, you can check out that video. Very quickly, I got 525 plays of board games last year, 2020, across about 68 games, give or take. There's some expansion-y stuff there or whatever. So over those plays and games, I came up with this top 10 that you're about to experience. But you might check that out. I did this list. I did a beautiful list. I mean, I used top of the line technology. It's amazing what you can do with the sophisticated electronics these days. And I mean, the list almost looks handwritten. It almost looks like a lazy person did it, but I assure you. Anyway, check out that video. And then, if you haven't seen it already, this will make a little bit more sense because you'll kind of know what I'm basing my decisions on. Moving right along, I'm going to do this one a little different too, because of the top 10, I could really only define 5. I could really only list 5 in any meaningful order for myself. What does a top 10 list really mean anyway? I mean, one way to look at it is it like the games that you're going to go back to and play again and again, year after year after year? Because if that's true, well, it's not true for me anyway, because I looked at my last year's top 10 list. Turns out I played 6 of them. That's it. From my 2019 list, I played only 6 of those games in 2020, and only 4 of those more than once. So 4, not at all. 2 once. I think I only played those 2 games too. It was before I did my list, kind of verify, okay, what did I like about this game? So really only 4 of my top 10 games from 2019 did I play with any meaningful number this last year. So, what does the top 10 list mean anyway? To give you an idea too, just a quick recap, my number 1 game for 2019 was Nemesis, and my number 1 game year before that, was Gaia Project. So, that all said, this list that I'm about to go over, these top 10 games, I played a total of 154. It took up 154 of my 525 plays. So about 30% of my plays were on these top 10 games. And the average weight of this list, if you go on BGG, and yeah, we all have our issues with the weight scale on BGG as far as how heavy is a game. And I know I certainly do. And I'll even bring that up here coming up. But the average weight, according to BGG, on these 10 games, and some of them, is 3.56. 3.56. So I prefer heavier games, as you're about to see. And if you watch my channel with any regularity, and if you check up that video actually up there, I do a kind of a monthly version of that video that I mentioned called MVP, Most Voraciously Played Games, where every month I kind of recap what I played and what I liked about it. Oftentimes I'll release one-off reviews on the games, but I just kind of like to do a monthly recap because my views change on games as I keep playing them or don't. And I'll mention that here in a second too. So, did I cover all the bases there to start with? Want to get to that top 10 list? I know I do. So let's start with the bottom 5. Now, that doesn't mean that, I don't know what that means. It just means I couldn't put them in any kind of meaningful, because they all do such different things for me. And when you prefer, heavier games, what do you do with a lighter game or whatever when you come across it? How does it fit? How do you rank that? So rather than sort of, mulling that over, I'll just show you the top kind of 6 through 10 games, and I'll put them up now. There you have it. That's Kingdom Death Monster, Core Space, and tons of fixings. In Core Space, I haven't even gotten I haven't even unwrapped some of the stuff there with Core Space. Space Empires 4X, I got the base game, 2 expansions there. You'll see Dawn of the Zeds there. The Magnificent, and Kingdom Death Monster. Why wouldn't that even be like a number one possibility? Well, it certainly could be. But for me, I know that personally my taste is I just don't finish campaign games. I just don't. I try, I want to, I keep purchasing them, but I've got Folklore of the Affliction I've never finished. I've got Charterstone I never finished. I've got Pandemic Legacy 1 I've never finished. I've got the only one kind of legacy campaign thing I think that I've finished with any kind of recently, and not even recently, was Rise of Fenris for Scythe. I actually played that one all the way through. But Gloomhaven, nope. But did that stop me from buying Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion? Nope. Have I finished that one? Nope. Not even close. Probably won't ever. Anyway, so a Kingdom Death Monster that's just, and that's just also too, it's just its own category. It's a board game, but it's like a hobby. It's a way of life. And also it's just very dark and unforgiving. And so I don't have a problem with that, but that kind of game just can't climb too high in just the uber favorites of mine. And also too, it maybe just has the year. I got introduced I introduced myself to Kingdom Death Monster in 2020. 2020 was already a dark and unforgiving year. So maybe it just was the timing thing. And then there's Core Space, and Core Space is it's just beautiful to look at. It's vivid, it's colorful, it's just 3D. It's a miniatures game. I've never really played a game like this before, and getting down into it and looking and seeing, okay, yeah, I can totally see how I can get through, I can see about X percentage of this body part. So how many dice would I roll? If there's a bad guy on the other side of this window, do I roll up? Do I throw an elbow in the window and just into the window and drop a grenade? Very low risk. Or do I race for that objective, run by that window, try to shoot it out with my gun and lob a grenade through it? Odds go down. I might blow myself up. But the fact that you can, on the fly, do stuff like this and the game mechanics allow you to, incredible. Loved it. Very spunky game. Space Empires 4X. That is, it's an old game. It's a very old game, but it was a very high-rated game. And after I played the solo, the base, I should say, I got into it. I got into it. And then, so I picked up the expansions, and, just a very... that again too is a newer type of game, kind of this warish game, little tile, not fancy looking at all, just kind of blah looking, but a lot of the expansion stuff added a lot of vividness to it. And I probably could have done without the replicators, but the Close Encounters expansion was absolutely necessary to take it to that next level. Fantastic stuff. Space Empires 4X. Dawn of the Zeds. So there is a very cool State of Siege, tower defense, kind of just a story narrative. You get just immersive game. And it kind of reminds me of Nemesis a little bit in that way, that you just really get into to what you're doing in the game, and it becomes personal to you. Fantastic game. I actually played that once with my family, but playing it solo too just really has I like zombie games in general. I like the zombie genre of movies and shows and stuff, so it also just kind of fits in my wheelhouse, and that, it's just a preference of mine. I like zombies, and this was good, so worth checking out, I would say as well. Down is it. Lastly, the Magnificent. Not lastly, but part of that group. So now the Magnificent, very different game, and kind of like Snickers. Snickers satisfies, right? This is a crisp, quick, plain game that I busted out a time or two. Put it away, but you can just relearn it so quick, and you can set it up so quick, and it's just, like I said, it's just very satisfying board gaming on a solo level that fits a niche that I don't need all the time, but there's just something about, it's just there. That's what had me bring it out. Just see it, and it's like, it's just so easy to pop out and just play a couple games. Let's do it. Very satisfying. The Magnificent. So now, let's get into the top 5. So what I'm going to do here is a little different. I'm going to do a quick little, 1 to 2 minute recap on each game, busting them all out, putting them on display so you can really see them up close. And I'll talk a smidge about what I think about them, why they made that spot after the little clip. So here we go. This is number 5. The Isle of Cats. And I do love cats. And I love this game. This is a polyomino game. You get to place your cats out here that you're going to grab, and you got to put them on the little doohickeys. You want to cover up certain colors for certain reasons, and make sure you cover up all those rats on the boat. They're going to count against you. But as you're puzzling your way here and linking things up in ways to score you maximum points based on cards that you've drawn and different goals that you might acquire, then you mix that in with the solo, which is this little area right here. Very easy to run, but the way the solo works is it uses your boat against you. You're up against your sister, of all people, as you play your board, but your sister is going to be scoring points based on what you do. So you're going to have to balance out scoring your goals with not scoring those goals. Very interesting variant. Very fun, quick playing game. Very beautiful game. The Isle of Cats. So this is my light game. This is my little, it's a 2.32 on the weight scale there. It's, there's always like, 1 or 2 light games that seem to really grab me in a given year. They're not my preference. 2.32 is a far off of my 3.5, what did I say, 3.56 weight, the average of these 10 games. But, I love cats. I even love this cat. He's a little shy. Hell, why stop there? I love dogs, especially this one. But Isle of Cats offers just a beautifully done game. It's got that puzzly thing to it. One of the coolest things too is while you're playing it, there's mathiness to it. So this has and I don't mind that mathiness, like Leaving Earth, another great mathy game, but this game, it's not nearly as mathy, but the AI uses how well you do against you. So it's kind of interesting. You're trying to build your boat up with these cats and score these points based on your objectives that you're gonna pay for with fish and put out there, your goals. But you have access. You can see, but if I do cover up all the rats, I'm only gonna get I might get points for this, but she's gonna get points too. And and you got to kind of puzzle this all out. So that is an interesting feel to an AI variant that I very much enjoyed, and as quick as you can play this game, and as beautiful as it looks, and just it's got it all. Isle of Cats. Let's go on now to the number 4. Pipeline. A game that's as Euro-y as Euro games get. What are you doing? Well, it's pretty straightforward. You're going to build a pipeline network, run your oil through it to upgrade that oil, and then with that upgraded oil, take it to the markets, fill orders, fill contracts to gain money, which then you use to build up your pipeline more and your infrastructure, or buy. You've got upgrades over here that are going to help you with all sorts of stuff. You're going to play over 3 years. Each year, there's going to be fewer and fewer rounds for you to play. You've got some end game scoring randomization going on here. You're going to be up against a fan-made AI, or at least the one that I use, that runs like an automa. So for instance, automa's turn is going to be flipping over an action card, and then based on the year that you're playing, you would go over and utilize a decision card to kind of figure out, okay, going to do government pipes, so you're going to take 3 pipes, starting until 4. Oh, we're year 2. Going to do upgrades, so then you use this to figure out, what order is going to take upgrades. So the AI, very slick, very easy to run, all thanks to at Freight Train 12 on BGG. Very straightforward, very slick, very easy to implement. That is Pipeline. Pipeline does not have an official solo variant, which I may remember I mentioned, I don't remember. And to make it this high up in a solo list without an official variant. Now, I looked at Pipeline a number of times. It's been out, I think, a year or two, and I wanted to play it. I mean, it just looked like the most perfect like Euro. I just was like, oh, I want to play it. But until I kind of looked at some of the fan-made variants, I decided to pull the trigger. You're always taking a chance because you never really know. Oh, that paid off in spades. It was no regrets. This game is also too what makes it so cool just as a game is that there's sort of different levels of play. You know, when you're first playing the game, it's like, how in the world can anybody hit 500? What are these dumb little 500 money marks? Who can score that much? But then, and it's so easy to learn this game. You know, it comes in at a weight of 3.84, but. And I guess, I mean, it can feel that heavy later in the game, but it's just, I mean, there's like 4 pages of rules, really. This is a very straightforward game. But mastering it or getting good at it is a whole nother thing. And then once you hit kind of that 500 mark, your score, then it's like, oh my gosh, now 1,000 is suddenly possible. I mean, first it was like, you know, now it just opens up the game in a way that I feel like it was truly meant to be experienced, and it's a great experience. That's why it's on my list. That's number 4. Moving on to number 3. Shadows and Gloom of Kilforth, a fantasy quest game. Here's your map. It comes out all randomly. You got 4 different types of areas to explore and have encounters: the mountain, the badlands, forest, plains. While you're adventuring, you're going to get all sorts of goodies. These are all just huge stacks of cards here. Items, spells, titles, allies. Of course, again, I've combined the two, the original Gloom of Kilforth with Shadows of Kilforth, to have all of these options. You're going to play, you know, a particular hero, tons of different heroes. I got a dwarf in this case, tons of different classes. I have a samurai in this case. I just randomize it, so I've got a dwarf samurai. Who knew? That is going to give you, as you level up, you're going to have the option of, as you level up, to get different skills that you'll add to your abilities, along with all the different items and spells and whatnot. You have to first complete a story. This is tons of different stories, tons of different sagas, and you're going to have to complete 4 chapters of your story. In this case, in this game, I'm going to need to assassinate this terrible bad lord in order to, once I've leveled up, gain the notoriety, then I can go after the big bad guy, which there's a whole bunch of them, but the Scion of Sorrow, or Sign of Sorrow, or whatever you say, that's the bad guy that I have to defeat before the game ends. And there is a timer. That is this night deck. I have to complete everything, my story, take out the big bad guy, all within basically 25 days. There's night cards here, and like many co-op games, but when you're playing solo, you take your turns, and then you flip over a card and see what happens, and then you go again and again. That is a near perfect fantasy adventure experience, Shadows and Gloom of Kilforth. This game just hits all the spots for that fantasy adventure preference of mine. It's my favorite genre of game. I've spent so much time playing so many different varieties of this game, and I just love games where you can do what you can do here, where you just sort of randomly come up with a character and a class, and then you randomly come up, now with this one, with a story, and then you randomly come up with the big bad guy that you got to fight at the end, the ancient, and then you randomly put out your land that you have to explore, and it's just so it makes this sense of infinite replayability, and you go from such kind of a meager hero to, at the end, quite stunningly powerful, and it's just a great feeling in a relatively short period of time. I would recommend both of now if I had to pick one to start with or recommend it, I would suggest starting with Shadows of Killforce, because that adds, a lot of what made the game, took it to the top for me. But and if you like that, then add the original, The Gloom of Killforce, because then there's all tons of goodies, and it just bulks up everything, and it just makes everything times two. So that's probably how I would go after this game if it's a game of interest to you. That was my number 3. Moving on now to number 2. So On Mars, a very heavy thematic Euro. You're going to be spending your time out here in orbit side of the board, or over here on Mars. You'll be bouncing back and forth utilizing this little shuttle mechanism up there. Very clever. Got to time it, because out here in orbit, you're going to develop your technologies. Then you're going to utilize those technologies to build out on Mars. And you're going to be developing the colony in that way. Your colony gets bigger and bigger, and you score all sorts of points for doing that sort of thing. You've got your player board, you've got your AI board. Comes with an official solo variant run by this deck. I've done a full review on this game. I was not particularly happy with that, so I have come to use a fan-made variant by Tony A680 on BGG, but that rule set, which is kind of just simplifies, really streamlines, and creates a quicker moving AI. But even there, I've done a variant of that variant. And as I'm recording this, right before, I found there was another fan-made variant just released, so I have to check that out. But that is a little bit of On Mars. On Mars, earlier in the year, in my monthly show, this was a disappointment. Not the game, but the official solo variant. Now, I've never been, and you would know if you watch my stuff regularly, Vito Lacerda, I believe, makes the best thematic Euro games ever. And he makes very mediocre solo variants to go with it. It just basically allows you to learn the game from a solo standpoint, that then maybe you could, then it's like, okay, now I can teach this multiplayer or something better. I don't know. I've just never been a fan, and I was not of this, but I was a super fan of the board game, and just more and more so. I mean, just couldn't stop looking at the game, wanting to take it out. And then the fan-made variants started coming, and I started exploring those. And as you saw, and now I have another one to explore. And I mentioned during that video that just like it was like 5 hours. It said, 5 hours ago, someone posted a new fan-made variant that looks all odd and looks very nice. And I've yet to try that. But this game is, for me, Vito Lacerda's best game on Mars. And so even though the official variant is not what I care for, it allowed me to get into it, and then to be able to tweak it, and all sorts of tweaks to make it just to allow me to experience this heavy, beautiful game. Now, from the weight standpoint, and I've commented on this, 4.62, I think is, I think it might dissuade people from wanting to pick up this game because it's got that weight scale. It's a heavy game, but I put a lot more games. Well, I mean, not a lot more, but there's a lot more heavier games that I can think of that aren't even close to that 4.62 mark on BGG. So I don't understand the weight, but beautiful game. That was my number 2 game. Just as juicy a Euro as I played all year long. Now, for the Grand Pumbaa, the number 1 game for me for 2020. Too Many Bones. And almost all of its expansion material. Taking a look back, I mean, there's something almost, you almost don't have to say anything. I mean, there's something almost reverent about this game, this system that pays tribute to any and all solo gamers out there. Just a massive undertaking. The original came out in 2017, and I've been lucky enough to have it since then. And then the world has expanded. I mean, here, what you got, fantasy adventure game. You're going to play this character. You're going to level him up. All these dice, this dice set is unique to this character. Tink, bunch of characters. I don't know how many. It was over 10 now, I think. Yeah, easily over 10. And all super unique. And as you level them up, you'll add more dice that you can roll. Too Many Bones, of course, is about rolling. You're rolling dice, tons of dice everywhere. And you're going to go on this adventure. This is the battle map. Many times, you'll go day after day after day, and there'll be an adventure a battle will ensue here where you'll put your character out. And you got your health chips here that go delightfully clickety-clack. This is a very physical game, and I'm playing a variant here where after I've gone through the kind of set of days that I've picked, I got to fight this bad guy. This is the Build a Tyrant mode. I get to actually build based on the baddies that I destroy over the course of the game. They're going to fuse together and kind of create this tyrant at the end that I have to fight. So awesome. But all this stuff is consolidated now in this beautiful chest here, which opens up just like so. And with this magnetic doohickey here, you can get into each section of Too Many Bones. Here's all the characters, for instance. Just beautifully done. And over here you got, here's all the bad guys you can face, or some of them. Compartmentalized, consolidated beautifully, and takes up just the perfect spot inside the old game shelf. Too Many Bones. I could talk forever about this game. As you can see, not really just like a game, but a system. Too Many Bones, and in the world of Too Many Bones, has year after year, it just kind of just not quite made that #1 spot. And I just felt like this is the year I've got to give it its due, because it's just so deserving. Because I kind of really came to understand that if I was to make a top 5 list of all time solo games, especially that Trove Chest, that system, just being able to be like, what tyrant do I feel like beating up here? Okay, now what Gearlock would do I want? Could I beat that one with Tink? Could I, I wonder, maybe do I want to play with a solo adventure deck, or do I want to play with a multiplayer adventure deck? So you can play purely solo. You can add 2 Gearlocks and make it much, it just expounds on everything and all the content if you play with 2 Gearlocks. Do I want to just build the tyrant that I feel like fighting? Do I want to incorporate little raft battles where I'm on water? Do I want to incorporate mechs and Krellin? Do I not? Do I want to just play the base? Do I want a quick game? Do I want a long game? Do I want a campaign game? The fact that this has become just so modular in a sense is, and that the game is just so complete on every level, component wise, and just the way it looks, the way it feels while you're playing it, the immersion into this world of Too Many Bones is top 5 of all time material for me. And realizing that, I was like, this has always kind of just barely slid under the radar, but it needs to be in the future when I talk about #1 games of a year. This has to be in it. Now it is. Too Many Bones. For any solo tabletop gamer that really loves, say, Mage Knight, gotta have this one. That's all there is to it. So that does it. Thank you so much for joining me. 2020 is in the books. I'm very much looking forward to what 2021 has to offer for us solo tabletop gamers. And you can be sure to find all the ins and outs of what I'm doing this year, especially on my monthly shows. You might want to start checking those out if you haven't already. And until next time, thank you so much for watching on Board Game Rants, and I'm out!